Welcome. Welcome, folks. Good afternoon, and welcome to another episode of Conversations with Dune and Friends. And today we have a fantastic friend, guest joining us from the Toronto area. And hopefully you are having good weather where you are. It's nice and sunny here in Sherwood Park, Alberta. And Randall, let me know if you can hear me in the green room there, my friend, still. And I see some folks are joining us here, and hopefully you're able to hear me. And before we get underway here, I'd like to introduce our guests. And so again, this is Conversations with Dune and Friends, and my name is Dune Nguyen, and we're coming to you live from, in my case, Sherwood Park, Alberta, and in our guest case, it's Toronto area. And I just wanted to make sure that our guest in the green room is still able to hear me here. It looks like we have some technical difficulties in just a moment here for some reason. And hopefully I'll be able to see our guest in the green room again here. For those of you who are watching out there, could you give me just a good confirmation that you can hear the sound coming through out there, folks? Wonderful. And I see Randall, can you hear me in the green room, my friend? Wonderful. So let's get rolling here, folks. And let me do a quick introduction. So Randall Craig is our guest today, and so Randall Craig is an internet pioneer who led the digital strategies for several major market newspapers, consulting firms, and financial institutions since 1994. He has helped over 100 organizations rethink their approach at the intersection of marketing and technology and land their digital strategy airplane. Randall has found several successful startups, held a long-term position at a Big Four consulting firm, and was a senior executive at an American public company. Now, Randall is currently the CEO and Chief Strategist for a digital consulting firm called Pinetree Advisors, and advises leaders on digital strategy, trust, and transformation. Randall is the author of 8 books, and including Digital Transformation for Associations, the Everything Guide to Starting an Online Business, and the bestseller, Personal Balance Sheet. Randall has taught at numerous executive education programs, hosts professionally speaking TV, and frequently appears as an expert in the media. He has written hundreds of articles and delivered hundreds of presentations, both in person and virtual. Randall has served at the board level for several national organizations. He's a member of the Global Speaker Federation and has earned his FCMC. So that would be Fellow Certified Management Consultant, CFA, and MBA, as well as a CSP, which is a Certified Speaking Professional, and a black belt in karate. And now that's a brief introduction of Randall, but I got to tell you, he's also into writing and directing and producing musicals as well. So with that brief introduction, please help me in welcoming our guest today, all the way from Toronto, Randall Craig. How are you doing today, my friend?
Oh, fantastic, dude. Wonderful. Thank you so much for having me on your interview show.
Wonderful. Thank you for joining us. And maybe it might be great if you can give us a little bit, fill in the gaps a little bit. Do you have any kind of stories or any additional points to mention that tells us sort of who we're talking to here for an hour and a bit? We're going to bring that out certainly in the conversation, but maybe fill in a bit more of the background for us.
Well, sometimes people say, well, how did you get to where you're going? And there's an interesting story. I was doing mergers and acquisitions out of business school years and years ago, and enjoyed it, but decided that I was going to do something different. And you may think, okay, Dune, it must be music or something, but no. As a young man in my early mid-20s, I thought, okay, well, you know what? Don't want to be a number cruncher my entire life. I'm going to go into law school. So I went into, I took the LSAT, got into a bunch of different programs, and went to my
Your audio went away there for a second. Can you still hear me, Randall? Sorry, we have a technical glitch here where, let me just bring this on here. Randall, what I would do if I were you is if you can hit refresh on your browser, my friend, that would possibly help the technical situation here. If you can hear me, just do a refresh. So I apologize for those for the technical difficulty here, folks. I'm sure things will stabilize as we get going here. But before we have Randall come back and join us, hopefully he'll be able to make his way through the mechanisms here that it is, the internet and all that stuff. Let me play a clip that I think is very indicative of what Randall is spending some of his time on these days. And so let me just go ahead and play the clip here. Okay, looks like he's back in, and your video is still black there, Randall. So if you could maybe do a refresh or let's see here. Okay, now the video is not working there, Randall. So can you see and hear me? If you can see and hear me, maybe check on the video there, my friend. Oh, technology, right? It's always great when everything works perfectly. And so could you hit refresh? All right, so let me maybe play a clip for you here just to get a sense of the music side of the musical journey, musical production and writing that Randall is working on right now. So with that, let me just go ahead and bring this up here. All right, here we go. And I just want to share this clip here that I think is good. And I see Randall is coming back in. Video is not showing yet, Randall. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and share this. Share this Chrome tab here and go ahead and let's listen to this.
Esther learned from her many peers. She looked beyond their words and their ideas. She's open to the world around her. She's open to the world, a real believer.
With just a simple word we know can change it. From disaster we can grasp a win, a forfeit.
Esther with just a simple word. What strength you really have within. You have changed Ham's awful whim. You have argued, now we win. We are believers. 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 Believe.
I always try, I did not fail.
We do believe.
Perish not, this is my tale.
We do believe.
Hands off all plan, I have prevailed.
We do believe.
Oh yes, I have
We
worked
do
to
believe.
prevail. We are believers. We are believers. We are believers.
Oh yes,
We are believers.
yes.
We are believers. Sometimes you find yourself in a place you don't know. Sometimes you find yourself with ideas to soar. Sometimes you find yourself and you do what you must. I've got ideas for the world to know. Believers, we are believers. We are believers.
Oh yes,
We are believers.
yes.
We are believers. Sometimes I love to sing or make you laugh.
but I found the mercies for my idea or already this may be, but others don't take different things that we because don't believe. Yes, we believe.
All right.
There's some hoes.
All right. Well, apologize for the technical difficulty, folks. Randall is coming back in here, and we'll continue our conversation right away. And so let's. What I like to do while we're waiting for Randall to come back in here is just to tell you a little bit about his website. For those of you who know Randall, you know he has done a lot of corporate work and really organizational work. And you know, we hey Randall, hey my friend, I'm so sorry for whatever the technology difficulty is, but looks like you're back, and I just played the clip of your musical there. Maybe we'll just ride on that wave there, my friend. Tell us about that musical. How did you get into writing musical, and tell us about that.
So I've always been involved in improvisational music. I've loved first on flute and then sax and then on piano, and I've always wanted to write a musical, but I've not had time. And I had a little bit of an oopsie around 3.5 years ago. I wasn't feeling so well. Went to the doctor. And I said, "Hey, antibiotics, please." And the doctor says, "No, you got to do a blood test." And so, fine. I went and did a blood test. You know, it's never a good thing when the lab calls you back saying, "Go to your doctor immediately." Anyway, long story short, I found out I had leukemia, of all things.
Wow.
Which is, kind of not the good kind of cancer. So here I am. I'm in the hospital. I'm getting chemo, and after months of chemo, the doctor said, "Sorry, it's just not going to work anymore. This is it. You only have one chance to live. If we can find somewhere around the world a perfect bone marrow transplant match for you, you'll have a 50% chance." And I'm thinking, oh boy, this is like literally I'm on my deathbed, and all the way around me, and I'm an optimist by nature. So my wife or somebody said, well, if you get the transplant, there's gonna be a long time that you're gonna be in semi-isolation, kind of like COVID now, actually, for everybody. But what are you gonna do with all that time? So I said, well, I'm gonna write a musical, like a Broadway style musical. And as soon as that left my mouth, I thought, "Holy crap! What did I just say?" So, so that was that, and literally, I was in a very bad state. So, my best friend said, "Well, how can I help?" So I said, "Well, go to the music store and rent a studio piano, and bring the piano in here." So, the next day, he came back literally with this fantastic pro piano in there, and literally every day I played for several hours. It was a lot better than the drugs. Just postscript on all this. There was one guy in the entire world who was a perfect match for me. Somebody on the other side of the world. Literally, I met him. Several months ago. They flew him in. Bit of a fundraiser, and I'm not out of the woods yet. The prognosis is still iffy, but actually this coming Saturday, August 15th, is going to be my 3rd anniversary of the transplant. So still on medical leave, but on the other hand, my mind's engaged, and I had some time, and during that time, I actually said, okay, let me go to Amazon and buy all kinds of books that might help me, jazz voicings, choral arranging, like all kinds of obscure things, and an awful lot of time, frankly, spent doing research on the subject matter. And lo and behold, I wrote this thing, and as it's writing and rewriting and rewriting and rewriting, and rather than having to wait for many years in the future, I had the opportunity to spend time, at the hospital. I was in the hospital for 7 months, by the way. And also, while I was convalescing at home and spending time actually learning how to properly orchestrate and how to write it. And of course, right now I'm going through another rewrite, and the viewers had a chance to listen to at least part of the finale. But that's how it came to be. And
Yeah.
with COVID, it's not going to be on a stage anytime soon. But on the other
Mhm.
hand, that gives me more opportunity to do more rewriting and doing more workshopping with some very talented musicians and just pushing it forward.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Thank you for segueing into that story, because really, if I can summarize what I've heard, you're really taking the opportunity to kind of redirect your attention. What some people might have tried to do. Let me just maybe reorient this a little bit better here, my friend. So just give me a second. What some other people might try to do is to maybe figure out how they can continue with their business and their corporate things and their commercial activities while they're obviously having a very serious diagnosis there, and get stressed all over that. Sounds like you decided to use as an opportunity to do things that you just didn't have the time for before. You kind of really redirected your focus during that time, and sounds like it was very healing for you as well, not just enriching for what you produce for other people, but also actually helped part of your recovery.
Yeah, some good points there. I wouldn't say it's redirecting because I've always done this kind of creative thing. But the question
Mhm.
is, am I just getting together with buddies to jam,
Mhm.
or am I going to spend some time, literally, writing the music down
Mhm.
and so on. Um, but when you're in the hospital for that long, okay,
Mhm.
I mean, what are you going to do? Watch TV? It's hard to read, when you've got that kind of, you know, that kind of medicine in you. But it's very easy to play. It's very therapeutic.
Mhm.
Afterwards, though, of course, I want to get back to the business, and I'm good at what I do. But the challenge is certainly at the very beginning was there literally you're sleeping most of the day. Right
Mhm.
now, the number of naps are a lot less, but I'm
Mhm.
still have a very big fatigue problem, and I don't have an immune system. So getting on a plane to sort of speak at all these conferences would be very difficult.
Mhm.
Um, of course, nowadays, it's a little bit easier with Zoom and all these other amazing platforms to share. But on the other hand, the whole speaking industry has changed. That the whole conference, the whole meeting industry has changed, where it's a lot harder, for example, from a financial perspective, to actually bring people together, even to watch a live stream at full fee, because
Mhm.
the economics of meetings have changed, right?
Yeah.
So we're still right now in the middle of of a funny period, and I
Mhm.
guess for me, I sort of joke with my friends. I
Mhm.
had 2.5 years of semi isolation, and then boom, I'm going to get out, and everything's going to be great.
Mhm.
But what do I find? That everybody finally is catching up to me and is learning about social distancing and wearing masks and
Yeah.
washing your hands 1,000 times a day.
Mhm.
Not everyone perhaps naps as much as I do,
Mhm.
or whatever, but
Mhm.
you know, it's just a neat time, a very strange time.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. This is a great time for me to maybe flash back to your maybe life before this particular diagnosis and this particular hospitalization and whatnot. Let me show our viewers the website that is your. Now, would you like me to show the new website that you referred to earlier, my friend?
You know something? Listen, yeah, I mean, let's put on the one that's in progress. It won't be live right now. If you go to randallcraig.com now, you go to the old website. But sure, bring up the new one, and we can talk about
You bet.
about that.
You bet. So
By
give
the
me a
way,
second.
what before you whoops, switch it back for a moment. What
Yeah.
what you look what everyone's looking at
Mhm.
just before the Esther one?
Yeah. Got it.
What people were looking at just before was the homepage of the new Esther website for the musical, and
Hmm.
what people are looking at right now, I guess, is my current website that's going to be live any day now.
Hmm.
There's me with my not big smile on a stage speaking, um, typically talking about digital strategy, one thing or the other,
Hmm.
and uh, I don't know. Ask away, Dune, and I'm happy to answer. Or do you
You
want to
bet.
just scroll through the website?
Yeah, let's now. We're looking the Esther website right now. Did you want me to switch to the speaking website now?
Well, I can actually see on the screen the speaking website on full screen. I'm not so sure if I see something different than you.
Oh, okay. You should be seeing the Esther website. It's kind of interesting that you're still seeing the speaking website.
Yeah,
Uh,
no, there's a little pic. There's a thumbnail of me in the corner, and then there's the speaking website. Okay, now we've got the Esther website up.
okay. So
Yeah.
sorry about that. So let's now take a look at this then. So looks like we are. Can you see it now?
Just switch back to the Randall Craig website.
Yeah. Okay. So tell us about this. More of this Esther website then. Let's continue with that. So as people go through this website, what kind of things might they find, my friend?
Well, most people don't. Most people don't really know the Esther story. Very much like, very much like many stories that are very, very old. This one's about 2,500 years old. Believe it or not, it's a very obscure book in the Bible. It talks about a woman who was chosen and ends up being the queen, and she finds the strength literally to step up and speak truth to power. I love the seeds of that story, so I moved it into present day. So instead of Esther the queen, it's Esther the VP. Instead of Acheshverosh, which is not an easy to pronounce Persian name, the king, there's Mr. Virius, the CEO. And Esther and all the people like her in the story essentially are going to be damned because they're different. They're different than everybody else. It's a classic Me Too and Black Lives Matter story set in a corporate context. And at the very end of the day, she speaks truth to power, and the CEO eventually says, you're absolutely right, and sort of does the right thing. And so it's a great way. It's very inspiring. It doesn't matter whether you're Black, whether you're a woman, anybody who's had a challenge and says, how can I break through this glass ceiling? How can I be recognized for who I am? How can I deal with the structural problems that we have, the systemic problems that we have? We'll recognize the Esther story immediately. And the fact that it's in a corporate sort of world, it becomes a little bit, of today. It's not an old Ben-Hur kind of story, but it's one that essentially says, yeah, everybody that can stand up and literally speaks truth to power and get what they want. So it's a great reflective one, but it's also a very motivating story. And the fact that it's been around for some 2,500 years, even though I've made quite a few changes to it for today, means it's exciting. So.
Wow, that's interesting. Very wonderful. So the idea again is take a very classic story and very sort of old story and bring it to today's sort of times and context. And with your background working so much with corporations and organization, to kind of have that flavor in there, have that context in there. So you kind of combining really convergence of your background and interest there, it sounds like.
It is. And something, if you think about what I've done with Esther, it's no different. You think about some of the great stories, Romeo and Juliet. If you think about the wonderful play and musical West Side Story, that's Romeo and Juliet. There's so many stories where people have taken the themes and moved them to today. And as soon as you move them to today, all of a sudden, perhaps a different audience might understand the quintessential lessons of the underlying story. So there you go. We'll see what happens. If you go to musicalesther.com, you could listen to the music. The website will be up. The new website, I should say, will be up literally in days. But musicalesther.com will bring you to something where you can listen to music, or on Apple Music or Spotify. Search for Esther or Randall Craig, and it'll come up.
There you go. So in this time that you have with that you had with being in the hospital and then post-hospital recovery, you have made it a big, I would say, a significant life project to contribute to this in a way that you might not have been otherwise been able to do.
Yep.
And coming out of this recovery, you're going to have a really, something proud. You can actually be proud of this thing. Now, I assume you work with a lot of people to make this happen. Tell us about the kind of team that you engage to make this happen, my friend.
So I'm sort of smiling because very much at the beginning it was a very solo kind of thing. I had the same thing when I wrote all my books. You start with a computer, and there's nothing on the page, right? And eventually, what you end up doing is you put words on the page, and then you edit, and then you edit, then you give it to somebody else, and they say, well, what about this or what about that, and it becomes something that's a little bit different from what you originally did. There must be around 30 people that have collaborated in one way or the other on this. I wrote the original music. I wrote the lyrics. The whole thing is in song, by the way. After several rewrites, my wife, who probably knows every word by heart, she certainly gave a huge amount of input on it. Last summer, I did workshopping with around a dozen people, playing the different parts and singing the different parts, and that meant, guess what? More rewrites, more changes, and certainly over the last year, it's been everything from having piano accompanists going over the music and the sheet music to professional script writers who, have had a chance to look through it and provide some incredible comments. That's what the current rewrite is all about. So it's evolving in such a way that the story is becoming stronger and the characters are having more dimension to it. The music orchestrations, of course, are getting a little bit more sophisticated. But how sophisticated do you want to make it? If I write an orchestration for, say, a symphony orchestra, or a 12 or 14 piece pit band, or is it going to be 2 keyboards, drums, and guitar, right? You have to make it so that at the very beginning, when it does get on stage, it'll be a smaller stage. So the pit band has got to be a much smaller one, right? Than say, for example, when it gets on Broadway. So you have to write these things in a way that they can scale.
In other words, this doesn't have to be the final version. When it take hold and gain traction, it will continue to evolve.
It sure will. Once it'll go through more workshopping once the current rewrite is done, and it'll once it gets on that first stage, guess what? What do I know about lighting or sets or dance or any of the other parts of the musical theater experience? I just don't. So what'll end up happening is the director and the musical director and the individual actors, singers, dancers, etc. They'll add something, and then the investors will add something as well. Once it's on that big stage, once it's on a small stage, I should say, then it'll go to a bigger stage. And guess what? That means, gee, we're going to have a bigger chorus, or we're going to have a bigger pit band, or the staging's got to be completely different, or the sets have got to be that much more complex, or the lighting more complex. So it will evolve in that kind of way over time.
Yeah. In other words, you give birth to it, if I could say that. You give birth to it and you nurture it, but you don't have to be the only one educating it and the only one, kind of caring for it, is what I'm hearing.
Well, something, you're a very accomplished musician as well, Dune. And I'm sure that when you're just by yourself fiddling with your guitar, okay, you say every once in a while, boy, that was a brilliant lick. Gee, that was actually a pretty cool chord progression that I just came up with. But you also know that when you're playing with a band and all of a sudden the bass player does something different, or the keyboard person does something different, or the drummer changes to some other style, etc., your guitar playing just becomes that much better. And that's the same kind of thing. You give birth to a child, but the community raises it. And that's the exciting thing about any kind of collaborative
Yeah.
activity.
And there will become a point in life where the child life is beyond you in many, many ways, and a child does not even depend on you anymore, and it has
No,
a direction of its own at some point.
that's right. Except for, unlike a child, well, maybe it's exactly the same. Hopefully this project, well after, it goes beyond me. Hopefully when it's on stage, it'll continue to pay royalties, even if I'm not personally involved in the production. So
You bet. Absolutely. You're a businessman. You know how these things work.
yeah.
Which is a great segue. We can, and we'll come back to this for sure.
Sure.
But I love to segue into the next, again, almost like going back to not only your previous focus prior to the hospitalization, but also your continued focus in the future as you continue to evolve your speaking and consulting and whatnot. So I'm going to bring up that website that you referred to here earlier. And tell me if you can see that website, my friend.
Just see, yeah, there we go. Wonderful. Yeah. So what everyone's looking at is my about to be relaunched website that shows me speaking, and most people have never heard of me, but most people have heard of the things that I've done. I'm the guy that put the Toronto Star online, or Globe and Mail's Globe Fund, Globe Investor, Workopolis, all where what I worked on or what helped institute right at the very beginning. I put on, more big names in Canada and around the world than most people actually recognize. Right back from the very beginning in the early mid '90s. So a lot of my background is doing fairly large and complex enterprise movement from the real world to the digital world. And from websites to social media to marketing automation and CRM to really everything right at the intersection of marketing and technology. So when my business is relatively simple, I help these organizations do these crazy things with right at the intersection of marketing and technology. I help them land their strategy, marketing, digital strategy airplane, and then I write about it in my models and frameworks and everything in my books. And people read the books and say, "Boy, this sounds interesting." And then I speak at the conferences, and the people say, "Well, those models are actually really something we can use. Can you help consult with my organization?" So between that rolling up the sleeves and helping senior teams figure this kind of stuff out, and then writing about it, and then speaking about it, and then doing more of the consulting, that kind of virtuous circle is kind of what I do. So what do I typically talk about? Well, if you asked me 10 years ago, social media was the big thing. Or 5 or 10 years ago, is really about web enablement. That was the big thing. Today, it's really more about other stuff. Yeah, yes, absolutely. Social media without wasting your time and losing your identity. That's kind of a something people are always concerned about. People seem to feel like they're wasting time with social media, and guess what? They are. And losing your identity. The whole question of identity theft and how you protect yourselves and what the policies are, etc. So that's one thing. But probably the biggest thing right now that I see is the whole question about digital trust. And what I mean by that is most organizations haven't fully dotted the lines between what they do online and the trust that their marketplace, whether it's customers, clients, other stakeholders, regulators, whoever it is, the trust that engenders. Let me give you an example. Marketers on one hand say, the more data that we have about our customers and prospects, the better we'll be able to focus our message and our marketing to them with something that's relevant. And by the way, we're not going to do this at a segment level. We're going to be able to do it. Everyone's heard about big data. We're going to be able to do this at an individual basis. So we know an awful lot about you. How do we know? Well, thank you very much. We've got our internal databases. That's one. Then we've got what you're doing on our website. That's two. Then, we've got a mailing list and what you responded to on the mailing list. That's three. And we've got a CRM. That's four. Now we've got all the social stuff that's going on as well. So we know everything that you're doing on social. And gee, we also know very well, because we've got an app, we know where you are and we know what else you're doing. And by the way, we could probably also just copy out of your clipboard in your phone, and we could take that too, and we could marry that with external databases, and there's a whole bunch of organizations that do this. And we can then figure out, where's your home? This is for prospects. You don't really have a relationship. Where's your home? Where is your workplace? What competitors are you physically going to? And all of a sudden, we can do really good stuff by wiring all this data together. And you know what? The marketers are correct. They're right. That's on one end. On the other hand, you know what? Doesn't it creep you out a bit?
Yes.
Okay, it's very creepy that they know exactly when, instead of going to Tim Hortons, I'm going to Starbucks or I'm going to McDonald's for a coffee, right? They know exactly what time I go to work and what time I leave, right? They know exactly where my home is, even though I didn't give it to them, right? And so, does that increase the brand trust, or does it decrease it when I feel that all that snooping is kind of fishy, right? It's creepy. And so that's a real problem. So the question is, what's the framework? How do organizations square the circle? How do we find a way to build trust at every digital touch point that we have, rather than tearing it down? And that's the real challenge. And that's one of the things that I think is very important for today. And that's one of the things I talk about.
Yeah, cool. Now, I didn't ask earlier, but do you have a demo reel on your website, right? Towards the bottom here, my friend. Is that some, I don't know how long it is. Is that something that we might want to roll for our viewers, just to get a sense of you in action there on stages, or up to you?
Yeah, sure. Why not?
Yeah.
Now, I have to say that doesn't include all of the digital stuff that I've done. I've done things with more than 4,000 people in on the other side, virtual presentations. So it still has some of the stuff in there, but take a look and let's hear it.
Yeah, let's take a look here, folks. I'm going to just make it full screen here so we can see. Let me know if you can hear the sound.
Can't hear the sound.
Hold on. That's because earlier I was trying to protect the feedback and kind of have it muted there. So you hear it?
Others are concerned about the dark side of social media, something we don't really hear that much about these days. What's the dark side? Words like identity theft, mistaken identity, fraud, online bullying. A lot has changed with marketing in the last 40 years, from frameworks like the 4 Ps to social media to our new social distancing world. The one thing that hasn't changed, though, is trust.
This is big, profitable Google shutting down some of its social services. With 590 or so of these social media sites there, it's not reasonable to expect that they'll all be around next year. Which means you've got to sort of split how much time you spend in all of them. As an organization, certainly if you want to have influence and engagement, but also as an individual. Okay, so let me take a sidebar. Let me ask, how many people have spent any time in Montreal? Okay, has anybody ever heard of Hotel Eureka? Yes? It's a good hotel? Just heard of it. I'm so glad you didn't say you were there. I asked the same question about a month ago to an audience. I had this slide in there as well, and somebody at the back of the room says, yes, excellent place, excellent place. How do I know about Hotel Eureka? My son, who's 19 and a half, he's in second year engineering at Waterloo. When he turned 18, he informed me that he and 2 of his friends were going to go on a cultural exchange to Montreal. For those who aren't so sure, the drinking age in Montreal is 18. It's 19 here. So he says, I got it taken care of, Dad. The 3 of us, we got mega bus tickets, $1 there, $1 back, and we got a boutique hotel right in downtown Montreal. This is going to be just perfect. Okay, we don't need to rent a car. We'll be just there. I think, really, how did you choose that particular hotel? He says, well, I just look for the cheapest, just like the megabus. Well, guess what? I decided to check it out, and I went to TripAdvisor, and holy cow. Worst hotel ever, it had bed bugs, hookers and crackheads. I said to him, you know something? It's fine if you want to go there with your friends. I just don't want more of those friends coming back with you into our house. My question is this to you. Do you think that Hotel Eureka cares about what people write? For the first time ever, we have an ear to the conversations that are happening out there. And we've got a choice to do one of several things. We could ignore it like Hotel Eureka. We could listen so we can learn. We could participate in the conversations that are out there, or we can host those conversations and perhaps influence them one way or the other. We've got those choices, but there isn't really a choice for a professional association, nor for policymakers. There isn't that choice. But what we do out there makes a difference. It makes a difference to us as individuals. It makes a difference to us within the context of the communities that we operate in, our professional lives. And it also makes a difference as a profession as a whole. Because when somebody says, what does it mean to be an engineer? What does it mean to be a policymaker? We all have a stake in figuring out what that is.
And that's such a great shift from just broadcasting. And you talk about that rather than just broadcasting your message, engage them, right? Because we're
right.
inundated with these messages, buy this, buy that, buy this, buy
Well,
that.
and to tell you the truth, 2 ears, 1 mouth, use them in proportion.
Imagine an interviewer or hiring manager is looking at your page.
Yeah.
So you want to have a link to your profile on LinkedIn. You want to have some basic information about who you are. Imagine your quick elevator pitch, 1 paragraph, that's it.
That's it. And just keep off, debaucherous stuff and you want to keep off the stuff that you just don't want people to see if you were being interviewed by somebody.
Indeed, if you were being interviewed.
Right. Okay, great. Randall Craig, thank you so much.
Glad to be back.
Good.
This is going to sound like hyperbole, but it really isn't. Randall is one of the smartest people I've ever met, I know, in the world.
That's it. Now, this is a great session because when I walked in the door, I walked in with a closed mind, and when your session ended, I walked away with a whole new beginning and understanding about social media.
Very impressive for me is just how strategic he is in his thinking and how holistic he is.
Hardworking, and he's a really good marketer, and he's very knowledgeable. He knows a lot of stuff about business and being an entrepreneur.
Inventive, creative, a really strong sense of what communicates well and what doesn't.
And I call him the king of making order to chaos. He's really great at being able to zero in on a problem.
Too, and I usually speak after Randall, and he's a hard act to follow, so very engaging. But I have nothing but good things to say about him, and I would recommend him to any company or any corporation.
He is probably one of the most recognized and knowledgeable people in the field, and I would have absolutely no hesitation in recommending him completely without any reservation at all, because he's so great.
Very cool. Well, thank you for sharing that, my friend. Thank you for sharing that. And tell us more. In all of your work, obviously speaking is what we kind of saw here, but you come from a really, as you mentioned earlier, a long kind of history of advising sort of top organizational leaders in all kinds of sizes, whether it's a medium company or a large. So a lot of consulting background, a lot of kind of hands-on work before you got into speaking full-time at some point even, right?
Yeah, because, I couldn't imagine, for me anyway, doing it any differently. I spent 9 years at KPMG doing client work and marketing strategy. I eventually put their website online as well, right at the very beginning. But you're working with all these different clients. You're working with some very strong colleagues as well, and that's kind of where I started. Secondly, I left there to start my own company, which I grew and eventually sold to an American public company. And then for 3 years, I was the senior vice president of this American public company. So, I was literally flying all over the place, once again, serving all kinds of fascinating clients all over North America, and Europe, actually, too. And then, after 3 years or so, I said, you know what, let me take a sabbatical. And that's something that most people don't really kind of have an opportunity to do, but it's an amazing experience because, you say, okay, I'm going to take these 3 months. I took 4 months off, as it turns out. And during this time, I'm going to recharge. I went to the gym for 2 hours every day. I took my kids I did the carpool for my kids. I went grocery shopping. I took lessons, flute lessons, which were wonderful. And I also decided to use the time to write my first book, which was Leaving the Mothership. And it had some degree of success. It was in all the airport bookstores and all that. And I discovered something very, very interesting. I discovered that you don't make much money writing a book. Like, I made a chunk of money, but I'm not Stephen King. I don't have millions and millions of copies sold. So it did quite well. And I made some money, but I realized you made a lot more money when people actually want to pay you to share your ideas in front of them. So, I started to get calls saying, hey, can you speak about this? Can you speak about that? And that led to the second book, which actually was a Canadian bestseller, a real bestseller, not an Amazon bestseller.
Yes.
Personal balance sheet, and then book after book after that. So when I was on the sabbatical, that's what I did. And people kept on saying, my friends kept on saying, well, how goes the job search, Randall? And I said, there's no job search. I'm on sabbatical. And so, eventually I thought, okay, enough people are knocking on my door asking for my help. The CEO of this company wanted to think about outsourcing all their IT to IBM, and how should they approach it? CEO of another organization wanted to understand brand beyond the logo, and how, a new CEO, how to go about doing that, and so on and so forth. So I ended up having these really great assignments, and that was bigger and bigger, more and more and more. And eventually I was back in the saddle, and speaking and consulting, and eventually adding on employees, and eventually I merged in with another company, which I was the CEO of for 5 years, and I just recently sold my interest in that to my partner. And so I'm a bit of a serial entrepreneur.
Yes.
And I must say, the reason why I think I've been successful is because of all the lessons I've learned working with such great clients and great colleagues over the years. Perhaps a bit of luck too. Okay, but I've always found it exciting to think about the could be, for an organization, and also for my own businesses as well.
Yeah. That's. Thank you for sharing that. I just want to again highlight or spotlight a couple of things you said, and that is where you mentioned serial entrepreneur, and that's very much how I see you. You've been able to focus on various very meaningful ventures and making really quite a conversion from kind of building it from scratch to the point where you're able to sell it to another organization, US or wherever, Canada, where they take on and they take it from there. And the other idea that I heard is that, in a sense, with this being in the hospital in the recent years here, you actually have a very clear template to work from. And that is, you've been on a sabbatical consciously by choice, and you knew that was valuable. You knew that not having a full-time job doing all the corporate things that you were doing before was actually a good thing. You actually opted for a sabbatical, and you kind of created new concepts and new ideas and build it and whatnot. So I think when you were hit with the big news that we all dread of not only cancer, but leukemia, which is a very kind of aggressive form of that, you probably reflect back and say, yeah, I can probably do a similar thing like I did last time. Granted, the energy is not the same, the level and the health is very much uncertain. You kind of knew that you could invest on a big project that you otherwise wouldn't have been able to, right?
Something I never thought of parallel my earlier sabbatical with the time away when I was in treatment, but it's very true. There is a parallel, but I have to say that I never thought of it. Really, for me, it's how do I make sure that I'm doing worthwhile things with all of my time? Sure, I like to watch Netflix as much as anyone else does. Okay, and certainly because we can't go to the movie theaters these days, and
Yeah.
certainly I can't. But I've always felt that I should use my time productively with things that I enjoy doing, things that can make a difference, things that move my, challenge me intellectually, doing things with people that I enjoy being with, and I think that's a good philosophy, whether you've had a health challenge or whether you don't. Too often, and perhaps we've all seen this with certain friends or work colleagues, where somebody's unhappy because they haven't figured out any kind of purpose, right? Or they're spending time in a job, maybe because it pays a lot of money, that they're actually not happy doing. And that's the biggest shame and the waste of it all. So when I had my bad diagnosis, it was okay. So here's where I am. Let's bring a piano in. They'd never had a piano in the cancer ward at Princess Margaret Hospital, right? So, but they did have a music therapist, who, interestingly, who would come around with a portable piano, and she'd sing a song or two with people and buff people up. So when she came to my room, we jammed. So any time that you've got that time, the question is, are you using your time for the best and highest purpose?
Yeah.
Right. And so that's kind of how that's how I looked at it. More than anything else.
In other words, you want to be the CEO of your own life. You don't want to just
I think so.
through. Yeah.
I think so. And by the way, when I was done the sabbatical, I could look back and I could say, yes, I took, I hadn't taken flute lessons. I took some performance in university and, of course, in high school. But I hadn't taken formal music lessons. And so I could look back and say, yeah, I've taken all these flute lessons. This has been awesome. I've gotten so much better, great repertoire. I could look back and say, yeah, I wrote the book. That was totally awesome. Yeah, I lost all this extra weight. So the idea of looking back and saying, what is that legacy? What is it that you've accomplished? Have you made a difference in a positive way, not just to yourself, but for those around you, is something very important to me.
Yeah. I know, just a segue into significance and contribution. I know personally we met through the Canadian Association of Professional Speakers, CAPS, which is part of the Global Speakers Federation that we mentioned earlier. And I know that you have contributed a lot to that association. I know a lot of friends, and frankly, some of us feel like it's a bit of a big family there. And in that, circle of friends and family called CAPS, you have contributed a lot through that. Tell us a bit about that journey for you, my friend. Some of our CAPS members who might be watching this later on, maybe give us a bit of a summary of your journey with CAPS so far.
So it started before as a member of CAPS. I'd written this book, I was doing all the speaking, etc. And I somebody put a contract in front of me with some clauses that I hadn't really considered. So I called a good friend of mine, a fellow black belt in my karate club, who had moved to Calgary, a fellow by the name of Jeff Mowat, a very talented speaker, super nice guy. He's got a great business and everything. And he, as far as I knew, was the only person who was a motivational speaker. But the truth, of course, he wasn't a motivational speaker. He's a very deep content speaker who happens to be motivating. Anyway, I called him up and I said, Jeff, and he said, well, Randall, I just have a minute to talk to you. Anyway, an hour later, that was it. So we had a great conversation. By the end of that, I had gone online and I had registered to join CAPS in Toronto. He's one of the founding members of the association, and he made the case that it made sense for me to join. So I joined. Okay, and I figured, all these people, they're big. I went to a bunch of their websites. There's one person's website. He had 100 articles on it, And I was reading the 100 articles, and they weren't fluff. They were really good. I was a business speaker. And I left there kind of depressed, because how will I ever get the, how will I ever get into this? So anyway, I attended meetings and everything. I thought, well, I better meet these people. So at the breaks, shake your hand. At the break, shake your hand. And I was learning a little bit, but it really wasn't that much. So I thought to myself, there's some poor sap that has to sit at this desk outside the meeting room, who took, registered the guests and took payments, and, registered members who are coming for the monthly chapter meeting and everything. So what I decided to do was volunteer to be that sap sitting outside. And, when one person would come up, I would say, "Oh, hello, I'm Randall Craig. And you are?" And they'd introduce it. "Here's your name tag, just sign in here." And I met tons of people there. And then at the break and afterwards, no surprise, my conversations weren't, "Hi, my name is Randall Craig." My conversations were much better ones. How did you start in the business? What do you think about this? Gee, can we go for coffee, etc. And people saw me as somebody who contributed, as opposed to somebody who just kind of leached, if you will. So after that, I thought, well, you know what? I'm enjoying this thing. Why don't I go on the board? So I put my name forward, and the incoming president at that time said, "Well, what would you like to do?" And I said, "Well, what's the job that nobody wants?" They said, "The membership portfolio." So when which means when renewal time comes about, you've got to nag them to see about renewing and all that kind of stuff. Now, they didn't use the word nagging; it was some other word, but that's basically what I heard. So I said, "Okay, done." So fine. There's election. I got in, and I was the membership chair. And as far as I was concerned, that was fantastic, because I now had license to call every single member. "Hi, I'm Randall Craig, the membership chair. Just want to make sure everything's okay." "Hi, I'm Randall Craig, the membership chair. Haven't seen you in the meetings the last several months. Just want to check in." "Hi, I'm Randall Craig." So I had a chance to develop some amazing relationships by giving back in that. And then I was in programming. I was able to talk to all kinds of speakers to bring them in. Eventually, I was the president of Toronto, and that was so much fun working with so many talented other board members, and helping move the Toronto chapter forward. And eventually, I was elected to the board, and I was then reelected to the national board. So I served on the national board for a number of years too. So that was my involvement with CAPS. I mean, now I volunteer. I'm on faculty of the speaker school. I'm involved in a number of other things, typically giving back, and I do a fair amount of mentoring of more emerging speakers. But CAPS is a great community of learning. I'm a member of a number of other associations, and the best way I can describe CAPS is this: it's the biggest consulting firm in the country. All the members effectively are entrepreneurs. They're partners. They have their own businesses, and kind of there's a joke: 10 speakers, 11 business models. But there's an amazing culture of professional development and ethics, and giving back and contributing. And, sadly, there's a lot of people who enter the speaking business and then 2 years later exit the speaking business. And sometimes they think, well, I'm a good speaker, but they don't realize it's a business. Sometimes people enter it and they don't really have an expertise or a special topic that they truly are an expert in, or sometimes they trip up somewhere else. But, I've been involved for, must be around 15 years or so, 15, 16 years as part of CAPS. But for over 30 years in business and senior roles. So it's a great experience to be with colleagues, and it's a great community actually in these COVID times in terms of professional development. It's fantastic. So
Yeah.
And I get a chance to meet you, Dune.
Absolutely. We met, I'm guessing, probably right in the first year that I joined, which was 2010. And 2010, my first convention was Montreal. And Montreal was a fantastic convention. And then the subsequent ones were all awesome as well. And so I've been attending every convention ever since. So 10 conventions so far. And it's going to be my 11th convention in Calgary this year, but we're going virtual. So that would be this year would be a different year. But every year I just book my December timelines there for that, and look forward to seeing you all.
Yeah, I remember when we met, and I've got a practice whenever I travel to another conference I'm speaking at. I always go to a hotel. Usually they're bigger hotels, right, because of where the conference is, and I ask where the piano is. And oftentimes it's sort of in a service corridor. And of course, I ask permission if I could play it in a service corridor. But sometimes I luck out because it's a grand piano that's stuck in a corner in a hallway somewhere.
Yes.
And so I always find that piano, and I spend an hour. You know, you don't want to sit by your room, and spending time in a bar really isn't my scene. So I'll play the piano for an hour or two or whatever. So here I am. I'm pretty sure I was playing. And who walks by but this handsome young man who at that time had pitch black hair.
That's right.
And a big smile. Okay, who introduced himself as you, Dune. And so we were jamming on the piano, 4 hands, 1 piano, and that's when we first met.
Yeah. And then we made it more complex. One of the jams, I had my guitar with me, and we did the guitar and piano in the main room, main hall of the main stage. There was a piano there. Remember that too? So
Yes, I do.
Because I brought my guitar and amp for the sort of evening concert that we did for a few years there at the foundation event, and so that was fun. And I must say, before we leave, CAPS as a topic here, you are a pillar in the community, my friend, and you are very well not only respected but loved. And the news of your hospital and challenge is there with health has hit all of us in a very significant way, knowing that we won't be able to see you at the next convention, which we always do. And so for those of us who are watching later on who are member of CAPS, it is an awesome thing to see you're recovering well, and not only recovering well, but in good state of mind, as well as having completed a very significant project in a very kind of area of life that hasn't received the same level of time previously. In this case, I'm talking about the musical writing and directing and producing and giving birth to it.
So thank you, Dune. That's very kind of you to say. Let me also just add 2 other things to that. A day after I was diagnosed and went on, the word got out, etc. I got a call from the fellow who was the head of the CAPS Foundation, the Speaker Benefit Fund. And this is something where if somebody hits the skids in a negative way through no fault of their own and needs an immediate infusion of funds, you get a call, and very confidentially they give you a check of whatever it is that's appropriate. And I got a call from none other than Jeff Mowat, the fellow who introduced me to CAPS so many years before. And in my particular case, I have appropriate insurance. I said, no, thank you for the offer. Okay, I don't need the money. Please keep it in the fund for people who really do have the need. But it means an awful lot that somebody would have thought to actually pick up the phone in the first place. So it's there for people who need it, and it's a fantastic thing. And the second thing I'll say is this: how important it is for people who are entrepreneurs to make sure they've got proper insurance. Disability insurance, critical illness insurance, it's life insurance, yes. But if you get hit badly, it's critical illness and it's disability, both of which thankfully I have. That means that you don't have to rely on other people, and that you can have a semblance of life beyond the medical issues, etc. And I guess the third thing I'll say is this: people ask me, gee, can we do anything for you? And the number of people who stepped up and did something for me and my family was unbelievable. I'll give you two examples. I put on my Facebook group, if you want to do something, donate blood. And understand, if you've got leukemia, you're getting like 6, 8, 10 transfusions a week of blood or plasma. It's just huge. It's not good, okay, but it's necessary. So all of a sudden, I had all kinds of friends, including so many people at CAPS, posting pictures on their Facebook page saying they're doing it for Randall, okay, when they're giving blood. And that was just unbelievable. What a great way to pay it forward, that somebody in your community can use that blood because you selflessly went and donated some. So that was one thing. And another thing that somebody did, okay, not within the CAPS community, but a friend of a friend of a friend, somebody we didn't know so well. People were asking my wife, "Can you come for dinner? Can you come for dinner? Can you come for dinner?" And after a while, she said no. But she said to one person, "You know what? I go to the hospital every day. I've got to prepare lunch for my kids, etc. Could you just put 6 peanut butter sandwiches in Ziplocs and deliver that once a week?" So this one lady did that for 7 months, just this was something that they did. So it's amazing. We truly live in a wonderful world where we've got community around us. If only, we ask, and if only we say yes, if we pay it forward, if we give, eventually, yes, it'll come back to us. So
yeah. I hope that he doesn't mind, and I hope you don't mind. But I'm going to show some stuff on Facebook here that a friend, you know who I'm talking about, a friend has posted here, yeah, I'm going to bring it in, and I'm going to go ahead and show it here, my friend. And can you see this?
Oh my! Yeah, there's David Guthrow, the former president of CAPS, and literally by clockwork, he actually donates blood, and it's great for his community out in Vancouver. But it's also great that he and so many other people have been doing that. Based on what I asked, it was fantastic.
Yeah, he says here, waiting to be hooked up to donate blood. Still in support of my pal, Randall Craig. Great way to help make somebody's life a little bit better. 450 millimeter or so at a time. Looking forward to the cookies and juice, he says.
And you know something, even with COVID now, it's even with COVID now, you still can give blood. And in fact, the need is even more necessary. Just call up the Canadian Blood Services, blood.ca, and find where there's a blood donor clinic. They'll ask you a bunch of questions online and give. It's costless, it's painless, and as David says in his post, you get some cool cookies and some orange juice or some other sweet thing to drink. So great thing to do.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for sharing that, and thank you for just the moment you mentioned that, I thought to pull up David's Facebook post here right away.
Yeah, cool.
So tell us, when you think about your career, your long career, very diverse in many different ways, whether it's consulting, whether it's speaking, whether it's building businesses, whether it's selling a business that you built a couple of times, many different businesses, and of course, dealing with cancer and leukemia at that, and all of that stuff. If I ask you, what was the highlight of your career? If you kind of tell a quick story and say, this is one of the highlights I can think of. Can you think of one? It might not be your all-time highlight, but as you think about it now, do you have a career highlight that's top of mind that you want to tell us a quick story about, my friend?
You know something? In the last 2 years, I received 2 awards that were very meaningful to me. One was being made a fellow of the Certified Management Consultants of Canada. This was for the impact that I've made on the profession of consulting across the country at a national level. And that was kind of cool because it was a recognition of the fact that I was able to move the peanut in a very substantive way. That was one of them. The second one was a year and a half ago, I received something called the Greiner Award by the Canadian Society of Associations. The Greiner Award recognizes my impact on the association and not-for-profit sector in Canada, also at a national level. And this is for all of the work that I've done to help the sector, I guess, move forward, understanding digital and the like. And so, literally drove out to Ottawa to receive that one. And it was just so nice amongst so many friends and colleagues and clients and everything to be recognized for all the volunteer work that I've done, but more importantly, that the peanut was moved and that we were able to sort of raise all the boats just by the efforts that I did. So those are probably two of the biggest ones. Can I give a personal? Can I give a personal one too? Or
absolutely. Before you do that, did I get the spelling correctly, my friend?
No, Griner.
Okay, sorry. Let me correct that.
Griner from the CSAE.
Okay, let me go ahead and so I corrected the spelling. Sorry about that.
No problem.
Just make sure that I get that right. There it is. Yeah.
There we go.
All right. So I made it too complicated. I added some letters. Griner would have been just. Tell us.
You never disappoint.
Yeah. Tell us about the personal aspect as well. Then.
Something. There's always the typical ones of when you get married or when your children are born or when the children are married. Those are pretty proud moments.
Yeah.
Etc. When my wife graduated with her executive MBA, that was also pretty proud. But just recently, probably the best was we had how do you describe it? A reveal of the soundtrack of Esther. And I had a couple hundred people in the audience, and I would describe each one of the scenes. Then we put on the music, and they'd see the words, and so on. And in the finale, everybody started to sing along with it.
Wow!
And it was just the coolest thing. Obviously, what the anthem song, which was played, which is part of the finale, and just to have a room full of people suddenly start singing your music was like, wow, just totally wow. So that was also something that was pretty cool. Pretty cool.
Yeah. So in the short time that you focus on this musical, again, writing, producing, and giving birth to it, sounds like you have hit a milestone that bring tears to your eyes. And I don't know if was Linda with you as well? You mentioned your wife. Most
Sure.
people probably know her name, but her name's Linda, right?
Linda Craig, that's her.
Linda Craig. And so was Linda with you in that event, my friend?
Oh yeah, my wife's with me all the time.
Yeah, I see her with you in blues festivals and joining outdoors before COVID, and I see her in all kinds of places. And then again, because she has that background, MBA education as well, she probably understands your world more than some couples do.
Yeah, you know what? It's just very nice when you're actually able to have a good technical conversation or a business or leadership conversation with your significant other. Yeah. It means that once again, the ideas aren't just your own, and your success isn't just your own. It's a function of what the team sort of does, and same thing with me with her career.
Yeah.
So.
And it seems to me like she also likes music as well. I see posts from her that says she's enjoying the blues festival and being in the audience. Sounds like you have somebody who also is into music.
She actually is. She's been in the choir for years and years and years, many choirs, and so she's also quite musical. I really can't sing, okay, and that's really her thing. But a very funny story. It must have been around 10 years ago or so. Her choir was representing Canada at the World Choir Olympics in China. And we had never been to China before, and we thought this would be a great opportunity. So I went along, and she was the musician with her choir, but I also had a very official kind of role. Okay, I was the bag carrier, and so it was just a wonderful experience, and just so listening to all these choirs from all over the world, including hers, which was very good.
Very nice.
And it was just a lot of fun. So
Awesome.
yeah, we've got music here.
Awesome. Now, I just want to maybe drop by your website again, and I would love to have you maybe highlight any specific area of your website that might be of particular interest to our viewers who might come and visit. So give me a second to bring that back in here, my friend, and tell us a little bit about what they might find on your website if they have a few minutes to go there at some point in the future.
So randallcraig.com. Okay, that's the website. Probably the most important thing, and what you're looking at is the site that will be live in a few weeks. The old website is what's there right now. But what you'll find on the site is about 600 articles on digital strategy, on business, and so on. And, I've written about 30 white papers or so on the website. I think I've got 6 or 8 of them that are available, all free for download and all different things. You could search if you're interested in big data. You could search on big data. If you're launching a website, you could search on launching a website. And if you're interested in content marketing or marketing automation or CRM, whatever you want in that area, hit the search and you can probably find it. And you can subscribe to it as well. So every week, right now I'm on hiatus, but every week I write something, 3-5 paragraphs of particular topical importance on the day. So that's what I would suggest. And of course, obviously, if you're thinking of having me speak at your conference, please reach out either virtually. I'm a certified virtual presenter, as well as a very accomplished on the stage as well. So that's all the stuff that's on there. All my main speaking topics. I've got a digital trust series of webinars and interactive things where an organization can subscribe to 12 months of me delivering digital knowledge to the members. But if I could also suggest you do one other thing. There's a menu item called choosing a digital strategy speaker. And if you go there, or choosing a social media speaker, if you go there, what you'll find is 10 very tough questions, just to the right a little bit on the menu. Choosing a digital strategy speaker. In there's 10 tough questions, because there's a lot of people who think that they're experts in the area. But if you know these questions, you can kind of determine for yourself whether indeed somebody is. So they're the questions. That's a great way to separate the wheat from the chaff, or decide on whether somebody's an appropriate speaker for you or not. So all the content's on the site. It's a huge content-heavy site, all kinds of neat stuff. You could download all kinds of white papers if you're interested in that. And certainly if you want to give me a call, please, you could do that too.
Yeah, I want to touch on one more thing as well while we're on this topic. For a few years, you were doing this series called a Professionally Speaking TV. I watch many of those episodes, my friend.
Okay.
And I must say, I get so used to watching so many of them that I actually hit play on some of them, and almost like just lying down, relaxing, and just listening to it in the background there. So I know that series well. Tell us a bit more about that. I know it's a bit a blast from your past, but I think
No, it's fantastic. I had done 180 one-on-one long-form interviews with thought leaders across North America. These are CEOs, politicians. These are authors of books. There's a few speakers in there as well. And typically, much like conversations with Dune, what I wanted to understand is, what is some of the knowledge behind, what are some of those ideas that those people have that would be useful for a business audience. And so we went into a studio. It's a 3-camera studio, a real studio. And, I shot one a week, literally for over 4 years.
Wow.
And we're right now in the midst of migrating the entire catalog of those onto YouTube. So that's a bit of a summer fall project. And if you go to search for me on YouTube, you'll eventually find them. Dune, I've had so much feedback from people saying boy, I didn't know that. Or, gee, Randall, you ask good questions. Or, I'd done, 600 or so media interviews. And so I thought that the reason why I started doing that is I thought, maybe I could be a little bit better interviewee if I had some experience on the other side of the camera. So I started that up, and it wasn't cheap. It wasn't like today where so much can be done virtually. But I got studio space and cameras and all of that kind of stuff, and it was great. Developed some great relationships with some amazing people, but that's not why I did it. And I had to give it up because, frankly, the business didn't allow me to spend so much time in the studio.
Now, did I get the spelling correctly, my friend, on screen there?
Professionally Speaking TV, yes. And if you go to the Randall Craig YouTube page, eventually you'll find all 180 episodes there.
Wow, 180.
Yeah, 180 1 hour episodes.
Yeah. And it's just this Randall Craig YouTube channel?
Yep, I think it's Pro Speaking TV might be it. But if you do a YouTube search for Randall Craig, you'll find them there. They're being loaded, and they'll be loaded throughout the summer and in the fall.
Fantastic. Wonderful. Well, thank you for sharing a little bit about that. So tell me, my friend, as I reached out to you to kind of say, hey, would you be interested in chatting for an hour and a bit and whatnot? We've been kind of doing a bit over an hour now. And, was there a topic that you wanted to chat about that we haven't gotten to yet, my friend? We got a bit of time here. Was there a topic that you like to kind of touch on?
Well, Dune, I've got such envy when I take a look at your background, and maybe what you can do is make it a 50-50 screen. And if people can look at all that amazing gear. So my question for you isn't what does everything do? But my question for you is, how are you able to square the circle with your wife that you can buy all that fancy gear?
Yeah, well, first of all, I must admit, for those of you who have been at my house will tell you that this is, what you're seeing there is probably only about 3% of what's in the basement. So I'm a little deeper in that than that. So
I know.
Let me tell you, my motivation for it has been mostly learning. So I love to be able to kind of learn. I'm a professional learner, right? So that's what I pride myself on. So I love learning things. And as I have an interest in music and sound engineering, recording and all of that, and, even speaking, and as you know, I play in several bands professionally, and we perform for, 500 people typically, and we do, 40 songs a night, and usually about 6 to 12 singers, some of whom are from international, quite famous international singers would actually fly in and meet us on stage, and we rock through 40 songs a night and 10-course meal and whatever. So that's sort of one area that I spent a bit of my time in the last few years when I returned to playing music. And so when I do that, I kind of say, well, I want to learn all these different things too. And so having access to the various technology and equipment allows me to immerse myself in it. And I find it very therapeutic. I find it good for that particular side of my thing as well. And in terms of my wife, she just... she loves staying home. She's a homebody. So she loves staying home. And so we make sure that our home is very comfortable for the family. And I hang around the house a lot. And so it's just a matter of when I work on client projects, thankfully, even before COVID, a lot of my work can be done from home. When I teach at university and colleges, oftentimes I need to be there, although I do some online courses even before COVID. So it's just somehow I lucked out. Somehow my wife just kind of was okay with whatever I was into. And so
I find myself very fortunate in that respect too. And on that, congratulations on hitting a big milestone. It's 25 years, I think, for you. So doing something right, Dune, congratulations. I think also, what would be an interesting thing would not to be to do one of these series, not Dune and Friends, but Dune and Equipment. It would be an awesome thing. No, I'm being serious about this. If you gave a technical tour of all of the gear, what it does, and what you learned from using it one way or the other. And this might be more interesting to your musician friends and your prosumer kind of friends. Right now, you're looking at my studio in a semi-professional. I've got a standing one. If I move my camera around a different way, you'd be able to see the music side sort of off to the side. I don't have quite as much gear as you. I just have the basics for composing and orchestration. But I have to say, it'd be fascinating to see a tour. You probably spend a few hours on that one, but it would be a great thing to do.
You know, I think I might figure out how that fits in time-wise. But you know, I love equipment so much that I can grab any piece of equipment of any type at all, no manuals, and I'm up to speed on it pretty quickly. And because I have various variations of it. For example, I don't have one mixer, Randall. I have probably about 20 mixers. So if it's digital, if it's analog, if it has different features from different brands, from different generations, I've had my hands on it. So you know, very quickly you learn all the subtle kind of nuances of it, right? So given that kind of approach, I just enjoy learning. You know, I don't do sound for a living full time or anything like that. But if you sit me down as a mixer, I know what all the features it has are, and if I don't know that particular brand, I can figure it out very quickly because you've been through so many, right? It's like if you know build so many different kind of software, well, another piece of software is just a similar thing trying to accomplish, right?
I have to say that one of the things, I'm also that way. I'm very mechanically inclined. I never had a VCR in my house that ever said 12, 12, 12. But so the hardware is very, very easy. I've always been a computer person. But one of the things that was a challenge that took a huge amount of time, and I'm still learning this so much, is learning how to use Logic Pro, you know, digital audio workstation. Very, very complex piece of software. And it's complex because it's not, you know in your mind what you want, but you have to figure out where the buttons are to make that happen. As opposed to saying, what do all these buttons do? Maybe I could make it do this. So that was, I agree, it's an amazing learning experience. And it's fun. It's
fun.
very, very, very fun.
And you can be very helpful. I would be anywhere, you know, kind of at a concert or at, you know, whatever. And if the opportunity presents itself to kind of be helpful, I can be helpful. I can be helpful behind a, you know, strapped on a guitar. I can be helpful on helping you with, you know, sound check. I can be helpful sitting in for you if you need to kind of step out, sound man for a while. I actually can put on the whole show. Some of the concerts we have, I actually bring out my equipment and we run that as well. So it's just that flexibility and just go with the flow is really enjoyable.
Yeah, I totally agree. I totally agree. So, you know, what other stuff can we talk about? Dune, I have to say one thing that's been fantastic. You know, now that we've got nice weather, my wife and I have been doing a lot of cycling. And one of the things that we've noticed in our city, I'm based in Toronto, is the sheer number of people who are outside enjoying, you know, properly socially distanced, thankfully still, enjoying all the biking paths or the walking paths and so on. And I think, interestingly, from a society perspective, one of the things we're going to see is people saying, you know, maybe it's not such a bad thing that we drop in on our neighbor and say hello. You know, a year or two ago, you'd never think of knocking on somebody's door and saying, hey, just wanted to say hello, wanted to check in. But I think more and more people are realizing the opportunity of connection is something where you feel great when somebody recognizes you and says hello, and you feel great when you're doing the saying hello. It's a gift that gives by giving, not just receiving. So that's something that I've noticed very much, very, very much.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I'm just trying to see if I can find a quick bicycle photo of you and your wife Linda here, and I haven't found it yet. But if you happen to know where it is, I can. You can direct me.
Well, you
to
can you can find one if you go to the Randall Craig Facebook page.
Okay, yeah, I'm there.
Okay, and you see my my home picture.
I'm going to pull it up if you don't mind. Is that okay if I pull it up?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
You're not too private for that.
No. This is the home picture of me on the piano.
Yeah, I see that. I see that. Let me
So-
bring it in here, my friend. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was around 4 years ago or so. My wife and I decided we're going to take a wonderful weekend in, believe it or not, Windsor. And outside of Windsor, there's wine country, believe it or not. And we signed up for a bicycle tour where we go from winery to winery on our bikes with a group of 15 or 20 other people, and we'd have a chance to try the wine. Okay, just a little bit because we're going to be on the road. And we went from winery to winery. So that was one day, and then the next day we discovered that the city of Windsor closed one of its main thoroughfares for bikes, and it went on for like an hour in each direction. So we're driving along, we're cycling along, and lo and behold, there's a piano sitting by the side of the road,
Wow.
actually in the middle of the road. And there's also a coffee shop there, and I'm not a coffee drinker, but my wife quite enjoys it. So she went over and had a coffee, and I said, well, you know what, I'm going to just sit down and play the piano. So there's my bike, and I sat down and I was playing away, and this person came up and said, oh, this is wonderful music. Do you mind if I take your picture? So I said, sure. So they took my picture, and I said, but you got to give me a copy of it. So that's where that's from.
Fantastic.
And yes, there's a picture of me and my wife in the little round.
May I show that as well, my friend?
Yeah, well, you're showing it right now. Actually, people can see it.
This is like this.
Oh yes, okay, there we go.
Yeah, cool. Well, fantastic. Great to see Linda. I know she doesn't come to all of your conferences with you, but I think I met her at one of the conferences, at least one of them, right? CAPS convention, perhaps.
Yeah, she's also, perhaps like your wife, she's a little bit of a homebody in some ways as well. So, at one point she used to come to all of the CAPS events or all the places, but she's got a career of her own, right? And so she certainly has got to, be working there, not just following me around. So
I see this number here, 278 mutual friends. I'm actually a little surprised that it's only 278, but you see that this thing here between you and I is
I do. I wonder who is not on the list, who really is, who should be.
I was expecting the list to even be bigger, but
something, Dune, this is a great, getting back to the whole digital thing, what I speak about. This is a great example of how times have changed. At one point, the only people who were on Facebook were the kids.
Yeah.
Okay, and then they grew up a little bit, and then the younger kids weren't on Facebook; they were on Instagram.
Yeah.
Right, and then they're growing up, etc. And then the younger kids, and it seems almost everybody else is on TikTok. Right, and so the question of other than our grandparents or parents or perhaps some people in our age, where people are on these social sites tends to be very fickle. And I've got a profile on many of them, but let me ask you, Dune, you're on Facebook, right?
Yeah.
You're on Twitter, right?
Yeah.
You may be on Instagram, correct?
I have wanted to go there. I was about to hit create account. I haven't yet, but I thought.
Okay, well, hold on there. You're on LinkedIn, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and by the way, I presume you're also on MySpace?
No, I skipped MySpace altogether.
Yeah, but at one time, if I asked this question, you would have said, I'm on MySpace. Of course I am, but I have no idea what these other things are that you're talking about.
Yeah.
Right. So I think, Facebook is still going strong as an advertising venue.
Yeah.
But I'm not so sure everybody's as trusting of Facebook as perhaps we might once were. Yeah. So the number of new friends we're getting on Facebook is getting less and less and less and less. Right. The rate of increase is getting less, I should say. And as opposed to the number of times we choose to follow people on TikTok, for example, or on, some of these other ones might be increasing. It's fascinating the types of changes that we're seeing.
Yes, I also looked into TikTok and was about to click create account, but I did not. So TikTok and Instagram has just a bit of a near miss for me on those for now, but probably get on there one point.
Indeed.
Yeah. So tell us, my friend, as we wrap up this conversation here, I would love to have you kind of maybe take us out, my friend, in whatever way you like. If you want to sing a song, you can do that. If you want to tell a story, you can do that. Tell 3 stories, you can do that. I'm a willing passenger, my friend. Take us out in whatever way you like to. And to our guests out there who are watching now and later, thank you for your time and tuning in now and later. But Randall, let's hear from you, my friend. I'm going to take out this photo here.
Well, thank you very much, Dune, for all of this. And I assure you that if I started singing, everyone would flee very quickly. So I won't sing for you. And if I thought about it, I would have set up on my other studio and I would have played some piano for everybody on the way out. But I'll end up with a story, and it's one that happened very recently. Last night, somebody, some friends of mine knocked on my door. I haven't seen them since, I don't know, February, but they live in the neighborhood, and I used to see them every single week. And it was just a wonderful thing just for them to do that and for us to have this conversation. Later that night, last night, I got an email from the executive director for an association that I'm a past president of, not CAPS. And they said, we just wanted to let you know that so-and-so has rejoined, and please find attached their email. The email basically said, the reason why we came back is because it was such a warm and friendly community, and G. Randall made a difference to us, and that's one of the key reasons why we decided to come back. And the reason why I highlight these two, and they happened just so close to me, just yesterday, is because so often, we forget, particularly with COVID, of the gift and the opportunity of connection.
Yeah.
And in both of these cases, the people knocking on my door unexpectedly, and these people deciding to return to a community after 14 years away from it, just highlighted to me the difference that each of us can make as an individual. And so my question really, as we end this interview, Dune and Friends, is to ask each of you, what friends have you actually gone and said hello to that you haven't seen in a little while? Maybe it's a neighbor, maybe it's somebody in your faith organization, maybe it's an older relative that perhaps you can actually do something, drop something off, pick up the phone, knock on their door, and give them the gift of your connection, and do 2 things. That's the first. And the second is to ask them to do it too. I think that's one of the things that we're learning, and it certainly came home to me yesterday, how important that is.
Yeah. So really creating that kind of ripple effect, that sort of chain reaction of positivity through human connection.
It is. It really makes a difference. You'll feel good for giving the gift, and they'll feel good for receiving it.
Yeah. Well, I like to maybe summarize by saying, first of all, thank you so much, Randall, for joining us for this conversation. I really value not only your thoughts and your opinion and your insights, but also your friendship over the years. And I'm just like many of the CAPS members who know you through CAPS, just have high regard for you, both in respect and in love, my friend, and looking forward to the day when we can do our CAPS hug again at one of those convention. But really, I really was reminded today of a life well lived and continue to be well lived, whether it's through purposeful business venture, whether it's through purposeful building of community connections and musicals and your involvement in family and always enjoying the jamming thing. Really, I must underscore, really, for all of us to be reminded of being the CEO of our own lives and being the CEO of really the people that we connect with in terms of making sure those connections are meaningful, and as you mentioned a couple of times, leaving a bit of a legacy in whatever way you define legacy for yourself, folks. Legacy is one of the words that resonated with me doing Rando's talk today. So thank you, my friend. Now I will leave it to you to take us out on however last sentiment here, my friend.
Oh, gee, I thought my story about connection was what it was. Oh my God, you're putting me on the spot as usual.
One last
Dune, you know something? And for everybody who's watching, it's a wonderful opportunity to actually make this kind of connection. 10, 11 years ago when I met Dune, to having a chance to share some of my stories with and my experiences with all of you. And if anybody who's watching this does want to connect with me, actually just pick up the phone or send me an email. I'd be very happy to have a conversation on whatever topic. Thank you very much.
Wonderful. Thank you so much again, everybody. You have been listening to Mr. Randall Craig, and have a wonderful day, folks.